I'm going to talk to you today about choosing a handgun for self-defense and some of the things you need to consider. I'm not going to talk really about any specific make or model, but it's just some generalities that you're going to need to consider when choosing a gun. First and foremost, and I'm going to lean more toward the semi-automatics right now. First and foremost, you need to choose a gun that is reliable. It has to be ultra reliable. If it's not reliable, then it's no good for you in a self-defense situation. So I don't care what your flavor of gun is, whether it's a Glock, Smith & Wesson, 1911, any of those. If it's not reliable, you don't need to carry it on you or trust it in the self-defense situation. Trust your life with it, or the life of your family or friends. Let's see. Does the gun fit your needs? What is my need? You have to identify that first. So after we figured out, okay, it needs to be ultra reliable, what need do I have? What does that mean? That means, am I going to be able to carry it in the way that I choose to? Whether it's open carry, concealed carry, is it going to be on the nightstand in my bedroom? Those are things to consider. If it's going to be on the nightstand in the bedroom or a truck gun or something like that, then size really doesn't come into play. It can be as big and heavy as you want. However, if you're going to carry it on your body, then size can be a factor in deciding which gun to choose. Are you going to conceal it or open carry it? That could affect it too. If you're worried about concealing the gun so no one can see it, then of course smaller is better. If you're not worried about it, then it doesn't really matter. It can be as big as you want. Alright. Talking about size again. If you are going to carry it on your body, size does play a big part, and really the weight is more of the issue here. If you buy a full-size 1911, bam, thinking that you're going to carry this all day, you're probably not going to. Alright, so what do you probably need to do is look at reality. Okay, sometimes we live in a fantasy world, we have to look at reality. Am I going to carry this all day, especially concealed? Maybe, maybe not. That's just something you have to look at yourself. The smaller guns, like this Ruger LC9, they're easier to conceal. But there's some drawbacks to the size of the gun too. We'll talk about that in a minute. Alright, so smaller guns tend to be lighter in the given platform. So I got 3 Glocks right here. You have the long slide, the standard, and then the compact right here. So assuming that all 3 guns are the same caliber, it doesn't matter which caliber, but they're all the same, the smaller gun is going to be harder to shoot. It's just physics. There's less weight to absorb the recoil. Your sight radius is smaller. When I talk about sight radius, I'm talking about the distance between your sights. You have a smaller sight radius. It doesn't mean the gun is less accurate, it's just less forgiving when you're aiming or pointing the gun. That's why rifles are more accurate with iron sights. They have a huge sight radius compared to a pistol. Your long slide guns or longer slide guns, such as this or a 1911, are going to be more forgiving in the aiming department. Another factor to consider is the size of the grip. Alright, you got a real small thin grip like this right here, it's very easy for me to reach the trigger. A larger fat grip like I have on this G41 with a double stack mag, it's going to be, somebody with short fingers or small hands may have trouble reaching the trigger. And when I talk about reaching the trigger, there's something you got to consider. It's not about reaching it up here. It's about when I press the trigger to the rear, is my finger going to be flat on the face? That's what you need to look at. So the size of the grip is going to determine can I reach the trigger. Now guns like your Glocks, M&Ps, things like that, your XDs, your striker fire guns, the trigger is going to sit out farther from the grip than say on something like a 1911. So I have to reach less distance to reach this trigger than I do these. Something to consider. Sights. Let's talk about sights. Again, what is your need? Is this you're concerned with self-defense, so some things you might want to consider in sights. One is night sights. They glow in the dark. Alright, and they're there all the time. They are an extra expense though. So is it something you need or something you don't? If it's a home defense gun and you have a light on it, which you should, then you may not need night sights because you're going to be using the light to identify the target and you're going to be able to see your sights. If it's more of a duty type gun or something along those lines, then you probably need to lean more toward night sights or maybe fiber optic. The problem with fiber optic is if there's no light for the fiber optic to gather, then they won't glow. A hybrid sight is these TFOs, tritium fiber optic. They have fiber optic built into the sight, but they have a tritium insert that makes them glow no matter what the light conditions are. And then you have something like these big dots. The big dots have a very narrow rear sight and a huge golf ball front sight. And I found they're very fast up close. Some people like them, some people don't. It's kind of, it's a love-hate relationship. You either like them or you don't. Alright. A safety, a manual safety. So you're going to talk about a gun that doesn't have a safety, like most of your striker fire guns, like a Glock. It doesn't have a safety. Or two, something like a 1911, a lot of other guns, they have a thumb safety that you have to take off for the gun will fire. This is a training issue. This is not one is better than the other. They both have pros and cons. This gun here, a pro to having a safety is if the safety's on, that's just another added layer of security against something accidentally hitting the trigger and the gun going off. A pro to not having a safety is I don't have to take it off. That's just one less thing I have to worry about. But then again, that's a training issue. If I train to take the safety off, it happens automatically. So like on a 1911, as soon as you grip the gun, your thumb is going to naturally rest up on there. And when you practice, you just need to make sure, no matter what you do, you take that safety off. So don't let that discourage you from a safety or not. It's just personal preference. Let's see. Oh, back on the safeties again. If it's going to be a pocket type gun, like this LC9, and you're just going to throw it in your pocket without a holster, then I would recommend a safety. That way you lessen the chance of something getting in that trigger guard. A better alternative is, for pocket guns, is a pocket holster. Simple pocket holster that the gun will slide in, keeps the gun cleaner, keeps stuff out from the trigger guard. Alright? Things to keep in mind. Are you going to shoot reloaded ammo or not? This is something to consider. If you're going to purchase something such as a Glock, then you're going to realize quick that reloaded ammo probably isn't a good idea in a Glock for a couple of reasons. One, it's a polygonal barrel. I'm not bashing the Glock, I'm just telling you there's pros and cons here. The polygonal barrel, for some reason, supposedly does not like lead bullets. And a lot of your reloaded ammunition is going to be lead. The other thing about the Glock barrel is it has what is called an unsupported chamber. If you'll look at the top of the feed ramp, where the feed ramp goes up into the chamber, if you stick around in there, there's a space there where the case is unsupported. So if you use reloaded ammunition, each time you fire it, it can weaken your brass, especially if it's been fired out of a gun with an unsupported chamber to begin with. So if you don't know the condition of your brass, then I would shy away from reloaded ammunition in a Glock. I've seen too many stories or seen too many on YouTube and other things where over time people shoot reloaded ammunition, even if it's jacketed bullets, where eventually the case weakens to the point where they have a case rupture and the bottom of the case blows out and it blows the magazine out. Now, could that be considered a safety feature or not? I don't know. If a case ruptures or something bad happens in the chamber, it's going to follow the path of least resistance. So that is the path of least resistance in this style gun. If it's an unsupported chamber, all that force is going to go out the bottom. Hands are probably going to sting. You're going to lose a magazine. It's probably going to crack the frame, but it may save your hand or save a more devastating explosion in the gun. If you have a supported chamber, like in these pair of ordnances I got right here, their chambers are supported, so you can shoot whatever you want through them, and they're standard rifling, so no matter what you choose to shoot through them, if it's the proper caliber, you shouldn't have any worries. If you do choose, if you say I'm going to shoot reloaded ammunition because of the cost factor, because it is cheaper, and the cheaper the ammo, the more you're going to buy, and the more you're going to practice, and the better you're going to be. But you're like, I really like this platform. I like, say, a Glock, for example, because I got one right here. Well, you might need to buy an aftermarket barrel. That may be something that you need to consider. From Lone Wolf, KKM, Storm Lake, they all make them, and they're usually pretty reasonably priced, but it is still another expense that you may want to consider. Okay? So if you're like, I want to buy a gun and I don't care about buying anything else for it, then when you make your initial purchase, these are things you need to consider. Alright, holsters. If it's going to be a nightstand gun, or under the seat of your truck gun, and you're not worried about a holster, then don't worry about it. However, if you're going to carry it on your body, then you're going to need to worry about a holster. Some models of guns, especially if they're brand new or they're kind of off the wall, then you're probably going to need to look at, before you even buy the gun, can you get a holster for it? And do they have a large selection of holsters for it? So that is one advantage to say, just say these two guys right here, the Glock and a 1911, or your popular striker fired guns, your XDs, your MMPs. You're going to be able to find holsters in all flavors, shapes, and sizes for those types of guns, so you don't have anything to worry about there. Like I said, the system has to fit your needs. You notice I haven't talked about caliber yet. I'll talk about that in another video. The only thing I would say about caliber is all else being equal, say the same caliber. Say all three of these guns are chambered in 9mm. The smaller gun, no matter what, is going to be harder to shoot than the bigger gun, but it's going to be lighter and easier to conceal. There's a trade-off there. And the smaller guns tend to have less capacity regardless. Now, the advantage to having a smaller gun is I can buy full-size magazines. So this magazine here, this magazine is for this Glock 41 and 45, but it'll fit in this 30S. Okay, so I can choose a smaller gun to conceal and hide and keep a bigger reload. Alright, so just things to consider. Alright, that's it for this video.